Another thing I look forward to on Mondays is catching up with Sophie Elsworth, media writer at the Australian newspaper, to talk all things media. Good to talk to you again, Sophie. I want to start off with what I kicked off the program with. I talked at the top of the program about this bun fight with Ita Buttrose and the government. They're reviewing ABC complaints. Fine, the ABC can look into its own processes, what it calls an independent look. But why on earth would she see that the Senate having a look at the same thing is some sort of threat to ABC independence? It makes no sense.
Chris, this has been a blistering and unprecedented attack by Ita Buttrose on the Morrison government, and obviously comes at a very important time as we head into a federal election in the coming months. But I say with this situation, if you've got nothing to fear, if you have nothing to hide. So I don't really see why she is so concerned about this. The editorial complaints handling has been questioned for many years now. People are disputing the handling of complaints. On many occasions, they've been dismissed. Now, for people who are not aware, Chris, this independent complaints department is within the ABC. Now, they say that they're completely no correlation, or they have no links to the editorial teams. But this has been questioned with various handlings of complaints. They've had many editorial failings. We saw the ghost train disaster. We saw the Juanita Nielsen problem. We've had many issues. The Fox News documentary. The list goes on and on and on.
We'll come to some of those mistakes in a problem. But, yeah, it's about how the ABC handles complaints. And as you say, it's an internal process at the moment. Now, the ABC and the board, effectively, Ita Buttrose, have admitted there is a problem because they're having a review themselves. They're looking at it themselves. So for them to admit that it's an issue, an important issue, and have a review themselves, and then say that the Parliament that allocates them more than $1 billion a year, it shouldn't be allowed to look at it, and that if they do, it's a threat to their independence and an effort to control what content they have at the ABC, that's just absurd overreach, isn't it? No, you couldn't possibly make that case.
Chris, I think that's a distraction. When you say the interfering with the ABC's independence, of course people are going to sit up and listen. I think that's absolute nonsense. I think Ms Buttrose is not happy that the Senate has said they're going to run their own inquiry. And clearly it says to me that the politicians do not trust the ABC's review process that they've established themselves, which is an independent review process. Look, Chris, this editorial complaints handling unit needs to be overhauled. The SBS has their own ombudsman. ABC don't. And if Ms Buttrose is saying there's a problem, then the senators are well within their rights to investigate this issue themselves.
They sure are. Let's have a look at what the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, had to say in response today to the reaction from Ita Buttrose.
Yes, they have their independence, and no one's questioning that, but they're not above the scrutiny for how they conduct themselves using taxpayers' money from any other government agency. I mean, that's sort of business as usual for the Australian Parliament. I don't know why they would consider themselves an exception to business as usual.
Yeah, it's just an amazing argument. To try and say that this is a threat to their independence is extraordinary. Now, as you say, Sophie, they've come off a long run lately, and I've outlined some of them at the top of the program where they've got things so egregiously wrong, and they've spent an enormous amount of money getting them egregiously wrong, and they haven't accepted their errors or apologised for them. And one that stands out is the so-called Russia collusion story. They did a 3-part, 4 corners series, calling it modestly the story of the century, and it essentially ran this argument.
The Kremlin's puppet master now has America dancing to his discordant tune. He couldn't have planned it better.
I mean, honestly, the Australian ABC running a line that Vladimir Putin controlled, who went to the White House and was running Donald Trump. It was rubbish when they put it to air. It has been completely torn asunder by various congressional inquiries and court cases since. And in the last couple of weeks, some of the key figures involved have been indicted for misleading the FBI. What is going to happen here, Sophie? You've been looking at this. What is the ABC going to do to try and clarify, rectify, apologise for this massive bit of misinformation?
Well, Chris, the ABC need to put their money where their mouth is and apologise and correct the record. Now, they have a very good habit of correcting many of my stories they try and dismiss, which are absolutely nonsense when they try and correct things I report. And I am very strong that they need to correct the record here and let people know that this is not accurate. They, as you said, they pinned it as a story of the century. What absolute nonsense. Correct the record. And Miss Buttrose needs to make sure that this happens, because it shows that the ABC's credibility is in jeopardy. They're stomping up and down that they're independent and they're, this powerful force, and yet they're putting out misinformation. Can you imagine if News Corp put a story out like that? We would never hear the end of it until the record was corrected, Chris.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's bizarre, right? The ABC like to look at protests like we had on the weekend in Melbourne and like to align it with all sorts of far-right conspiracy theories. Yet here they are, where they're pushing this sort of Trump derangements syndrome, complete left-wing conspiracy against Trump, and they don't correct it. And now Ita Buttrose is running some conspiracy theory about the government telling them what stories to do. I mean, they've really got lost down their own wormhole, haven't they?
Chris, the whole complaint system is a dog's breakfast. The ABC will be hoping that this is resolved in the new year, but they ought to take a good look at themselves and realise there are editorial failings, and they must be upheld to the standards of the ABC Charter that represent the Australian, that are a good representation of media in Australia that we all pay for. The taxpayers pay for this service, and it must be, have its integrity held up, and their reporting must be accurate. I mean, they've gone down this green left agenda, and it's catching them out time and time again, Chris.
It's not too much to ask for. Thanks for joining us, Sophie.